All right, so I guess then we just get started. So if you're tuning in, and you are because you're listening to my voice right now, this is the Third Eye Samurai podcast. Metaphysics is what we talk about, and this is actually going to be a little more on the physical side than the metaphysical. It's actually going to be both. We're going to talk about both aspects of the benefits of being a vegetarian, or maybe there are some detriments. I don't know. We're going to have to get into all that. But before we do that, we're going to talk about some big event that's happening in astrology, an astrological event that's going on, and it's going to start tomorrow at the time of this live broadcast. And of course, I got the Blue Moon and Neptune here. He's going to be spitting some knowledge at you, and we're going to start with the astrology thing. So what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining in. So let's just jump right into the astrological update. So basically, one of the biggest planets in our solar system that plays one of the biggest roles, does a lot with our reality, a lot with how we structure life, would be Saturn. Saturn is a very karmic planet. It's one of the things that are kind of judging us, and what we do, we kind of get back in return when it comes to Saturn. So Saturn's all about your status and your career and where you want to see yourself in life and how you see reality and how you want to structure that, right? So when a planet goes retrograde, that pretty much means it's like slowing down in the sky, and we kind of look at it as if it's going backwards. And that's usually, yeah. And when Saturn goes retrograde, it's like Saturn's saying, okay, what's going on here? Maybe we need to rethink things, refine tune things, reanalyze things, because Saturn wants you to maybe pay closer attention of how you're constructing your reality. And during this time, when Saturn goes retrograde, things tend to change, or you tend to get some type of restriction, and you are kind of forced to kind of see your reality the way you're supposed to.
Okay, well, let me ask you something, because Saturn is one of the planets in astrology that gives me the most trouble personally, and I think it has an association with, like, Hades, right? The Greek or the Roman god that's associated with the planet Saturn is basically like their devil, their version of, and I don't know, is that a true thing? Like, what does that have to do with the energy of Saturn? And like what you're saying doesn't sound evil or anything really so far.
Well, in astrology,
is that true?
There's some things. Yeah, there's definitely some things true to that. Like in astrology, we have what we call malefic planets, and that's basically they bring conflict sometimes, or things that are kind of hard to deal with. That would be Mars, Pluto, and Saturn.
Pluto, and Saturn. Okay, yeah, Pluto's. Oh no, I think Pluto is Hades. Saturn is, I don't know. Oof. Let me look that up right now. But go on, because this is interesting. So, and I can see how all three of those. Mars is the warrior, right? He's like Aries or something. Like he's on the battlefield taking people out. And then we got Saturn and Pluto. Okay, I'm gonna look up what those are associated with. It helps me a lot having a visual to remember the character of each planet, because each planet kind of has its own like personality, right?
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. And
so go ahead and
so Saturn, if we want to go ancient astrology, we have like the upper planets that are kind of like above on regular earthly planets. That would be like Aries through Libra, which is the halfway point. So Libra could kind of go back from the upper world and the underworld, but we would call like the signs that are after Libra. So Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, more like those more godly type planets or signs that kind of feel like not as earthly as the other signs, right? And Saturn would be what we would call like the Leo would be the ruler of the upper world, and Saturn would be the ruler of the underworld, right? And when we look at the word Saturn, it kind of says Satan too, right? And Saturn doesn't mean that Saturn's evil or Satan's even evil. Everything has a good to bad, whatever. But like Saturn is like the judge, is the gatekeeper of the underworld or the astral world, spiritual world, whatever you want to call it, right? It's like the karmic gatekeeper. So typically, when you're doing things karmically that aren't good for you, Saturn is the planet that kind of like messes up your reality to show you what you're doing that's like malefic to your life, you see?
Oh, okay. All right. I just found out what the story is, what the Greek god related to Saturn is, and it's a really interesting one, and I'm curious if it'll relate to what you're saying or how it does. He is Cronus. So Cronus was the Greek god that gave birth to Zeus, who gave birth to like all the other Greek gods supposedly. So the idea is that and the thing with Cronus is he was like this kind of like overlord of the world, but like he was also in league with the Titans. I think it was more of like a time of chaos. And Zeus, I don't know. I don't know how else to put this because this is the Greek story. Actually, cut off the genitals of his father Cronus in order to stop him from creating more Titans, which were these chaotic forces that were ruling the world. And then Zeus puts the world in order. And then just to clarify and then Pluto is Hades, the god of the underworld or whatever in Greek mythology. So just to double back on that. So yeah, that's a weird story. How does that relate? Do you have any ideas how that relates to what you were just explaining?
Well, Saturn is like Zeus, I guess, would be like the sun, right? And Saturn would be, very powerful, but it's not the sun, right? So the sun, Zeus, wanted to get rid of Saturn having so much power. You see what I'm saying? But Saturn is right. So, but like, yeah, Saturn is that planet that is really in control over a lot of the good and bad things that are happening in our lives, right? So and Saturn's all about karma, right? Because Saturn's a karmic planet, right? So if you're, doing a lot of good work and you're doing things that are healthy for your reality, then Saturn's going to give you whatever you're trying to get, right? And Saturn's all about like building strong foundations, building strong structures, right? So like Saturn's kind of looked at malefic because Saturn's kind of taking things from people, but it's only taking it from you, so you learn how to get it the right way. Saturn wants to restrict, so you go and get it with a strong foundation, with strong strategic planning and going about it the right way. Now, if someone that has a lot of Saturn in their chart, they tend to take a long time they might be a late bloomer sometimes. They might take a long time to reach high up in life. But once they reach there, they kind of stay there versus a person who shoots up really quickly and doesn't really appreciate or acknowledge how they got there or didn't have to work that hard to get there. So they don't care about keeping it as much, or they're not properly on the foundation and they might lose it just as fast as they got it. But with Saturn, you tend to get it. Once you get it, you tend to keep it. Now, when Saturn goes retrograde like it's going now, it's a time to relook at everything, reanalyze everything, and make sure you're making the right decisions or you're going the right way in life. Because if you're not, this is the time where Saturn is going to start destroying stuff. And I'm sure some people are already feeling the changes that are like thrown on them that they didn't even try to have. And it's because they're not doing things that the way Saturn wants you to do karmically. So Saturn's going to be retrograde till middle of September. So this is going to be happening for a very long time, months. So for the next few months.
So wait, the retrograde, it amplifies the energy of Saturn while it's in retrograde? Is that what's going on, or?
It does both. It's an amplifier, but it's also a time to, when it goes retrograde, just think of it's a time to reflect, reanalyze, redo. Okay. You see what I'm saying? So it's like Saturn's wanting to go back and look over things. And make sure you're making the right decision. Now, a lot of people will say during Saturn retrograde, since it controls so much, and Saturn's looking to reanalyze and rethink about things, it's not necessarily the best time to make huge decisions. But I don't say you have to live by that. But a lot of people do say that, like, yeah, Saturn's retrograde, you don't want to sign a new lease or something. You know what I mean? Because you're supposed to be reflecting and reanalyzing and thinking about it instead of actually taking a lot of action.
Okay, so we'll wrap this up soon because we got to get into the matter at hand, the topic of the day. But like, I'm still having a little trouble understanding Saturn, but we're gonna have to do a whole podcast on it, and then we'll really go deep. But getting a little bit back to the Cronus and that whole story, and and what you're saying, it almost feels like the power of the Earth, like Cronus was like part, like he was the Earth or something like that, I think, and so like. Zeus is on top of it doing his thing and like putting it into order, but it's like that raw, super powerful, like it can challenge you, but it can grow. Like the Earth it's not really good or evil. You get the impression of it's just a lot of powerful energy. Does that sound like it's kind of going in the right direction?
Definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Saturn is very powerful, and it's going to give you very good results, and it can give you bad results too. It all depends on what you're doing karmically. What what you put in is what Saturn's going to put out. Same thing with Earth,
Yeah.
So it's the same
Like
type of concept.
like when basically what happened in the Greek myth is that Cronus kind of his being there, Saturn being there, challenged Zeus. And then when Zeus was able to rise to that occasion by cutting off his genitals in this case, but like the point is he rose to the occasion, did what he had to do, even though it was tough. It was his own father, and I'm sure he's like, we did put up a fight or whatever, maybe, or maybe he was sleeping. I don't know. But the point is that like he took the action he needed to take, and then became like the king of the Mount Olympus and all the Greek gods and all that stuff. So there was a great reward. But if he had failed at the task at hand, then he would have just probably gotten eaten, because Cronus ate like a bunch of his sons and stuff. So he was like a pretty twisted character, man. So, but yeah, he probably it would have destroyed him. It would have had the exact opposite effect. So I feel like that's a nice way at least for me to remember like kind of the power of Saturn, and that it has both benefit and detriment. But the benefit comes when you take some action, when you reflect, and maybe. Were you saying, do you take action in this time? Or,
well, this is definitely time to reanalyze things and potentially. It's not really time to start things new, right? Because Saturn is going back, and it's like, okay, what just happened? What did we just do? What did we just create? So this might be a better time to not start something new, but maybe redo something, or put the final touches of something. You know what I mean? Or go back on something that you were thinking about going forward on. Maybe like, maybe that's not a good idea. That's what the retrograde means. And then when it goes direct again, when it starts going forward, then it's the time to really put your feet into the ground and really take action on whatever you've been thinking about.
All right, perfect. I think everyone's got to use their third eye and kind of see what that means to them. And what the truth is to them. So we could leave it at that. So what we're going to start talking about is the being vegetarian and how that affects your physical and spiritual health. And you're a vegetarian now. I don't know if you have been for that long, but I should point out that like you've been making some serious physical gains, muscle gains on a vegetarian diet, right?
Yes, I have.
Can we get a little flex to the camera? Because we need some
little flex.
Okay, we don't like to show off here and stuff, but like just in case they're doubting that, because I was one of the people who was like, I don't know if you get enough protein on vegetarian. So my background, just to be super brief, is like I've slowly been eating less and less meat, and that seems to be, I think it's like a third eye thing where it's like my body's perceiving that that's not the best thing for me. But like I definitely grew up eating meat and stuff from my mom is Nubian Egyptian, so have the Arab cuisine. They really like meat there. But there are a lot of good vegetarian options too. But so have you always been vegetarian, or like
no, I probably would start? Yeah, so I became a vegetarian about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more. And like, I started my spiritual journey a long time ago. But I've also started my fitness journey a long time ago too. And so everyone knows in fitness, you got to eat a lot of protein, and everyone knows there's a ton of protein in meat. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of avoiding the whole vegetarian thing, even though I wanted to be spiritually strong. Right. So I did know, it probably wasn't the best thing to do. I was, semi-aware of the slaughterhouses and stuff like that. But like I said, I was just avoiding it, not trying to think about it, right? But then, after a year of just like eating nothing but like chicken breast, right? My chest started feeling like raw meat almost, like the way it feels when you're not flexing it. It feels just like a chicken breast.
I know exactly what you mean. I see people who are like muscular or seemingly muscular, but like I haven't touched their chest, but that's exactly what I would imagine it. That's so interesting. So that happened to you after like hitting the gym hard and eating, like, were you doing like 4 or 5 chicken breasts a day and all that stuff, like hardcore bodybuilder routine?
I was eating at least 3 chicken breasts a day.
Okay, yeah. So you were hitting it pretty hard.
Yeah, and lots of turkey. And once I felt myself, and I was like, man, I'm literally building my body off the back of murdered animals. And I couldn't.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I couldn't avoid it anymore. I felt really disgusted with myself for a long time there. So after that happened,
I'm like feeling it right now. Like I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But anyways, go on. Yeah.
So after that happened, I started, I stopped avoiding the situation. I started really looking into, why you should be vegetarians and stuff like that. And then it was an easy, no-brainer decision for me. And so I stopped eating meat right there on the spot and haven't ate any type of flesh for over 2 years, and it hasn't been. And I'm actually happy about it. Life is a lot better because of that reason.
Okay, so we're going to talk about how that affected your gains and your your physical and spiritual health and gains. But what was I just going to say? I don't know. All right, so let's just jump into that then. So the physical, let's get into the physical reasons. That's what you have. Oh no, let's go into spiritual reasons first. That's what we have on the agenda. So aside from the physical reasons, we started talking about, but we're going to go into detail about that. What is the main reason, like spiritually, not to eat meat?
Everyone's on their own spiritual journey, so I mean, everyone's going to find their own reasons for this type of thing. And but for me personally, it makes a lot of sense on a spiritual level of what we're doing, right? So like, we are human beings, and we're made out of cells, right? And we are ourselves. So these same cells, cell, right? We're eating that from the meat. We get cells from that too, right? And every 30 days or so, it could be a little bit less or more, our body kills off all our cells and births new ones, right? And the new cells, which is our cells, are getting birthed from the food that we're consuming, okay? Now, people are consuming a lot of slaughtered meat, right? So those slaughtered meat cells have a certain energetic frequency to them, right? Think about it. Let's say you're a cow. You were raised and grown up at a slaughterhouse. You've witnessed all your family members dying. You're in line, and you're next. You're about to pretty much get your head chopped off. You hear everyone getting their head chopped off before then, and you're scared. You have high anxiety. You're in survival mode. You're probably depressed because the animals are living in such horrible conditions. And so then they get their head sliced off, right? And so that was the state that their cells are in when they're slaughtered. And then we take that same food, and energy can't be destroyed; it only be transferred, right? So we take that same food, we eat it, and what do we have? What do most humans have issues with, especially in America? Fear, anxiety, anger, sadness, depression. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And a lot of us, we act like savages, like animals, right? Because we're eating nothing but animals. So
wait, let's talk about that as like a metaphysical concept for a second, because so you've got the physical cells. Everything's on a spectrum. From a quantum physics point of view, matter and energy are the same thing, just expressed in different forms, and they can kind of switch back and forth. So I feel like that's the the veil or the dividing line between physical and metaphysical when you get into the energy. Now, the idea, I think, like the way I imagine it, is that on the energy side of things, like just on the physical side of things, all the atoms and cells stack up to create more complicated things that have so much depth. You could study it from this angle, you could study it from that angle. On the metaphysical side, there's probably equal amount of depth. And I think of that as like the emotional vibration. That's like one dimension in which the energy of each molecule and cell is vibrating. It has an emotional vibration. Maybe it has memory, or maybe it has I don't know. That's the whole point. Like, that's what we got to start discovering. But I imagine there's this complex, multidimensional vibration happening, and it kind of remembers in that it continues vibrating in the vibration that is most powerful around it, because that's how vibrations work. So there's a strong vibration and another one. This one's going to match that one, and eventually they're just going to vibrate together. So I can imagine the slaughterhouse you're talking about. where everyone's, you know, all this fear is vibrating and then it feeds on itself. And then the whole slaughterhouse is probably vibrating with this fear energy. And any cow that walks in there is going to, its cells are going to start resonating at that frequency too. And then once it gets shipped off and stuff, like, unless there's, I don't, you know, like, that'll stay with those cells. And then eventually it goes into your body. And then if you're eating enough of it, if its vibrations are stronger, or even if it's not stronger, it will affect your vibrations on some level and start shifting them. That would, yeah. So that is like, and another thing, okay, I remember what I wanted to say earlier, and I just wanted to touch upon this because I feel like this is a nice preface to this whole conversation, is like, so I still eat meat sometimes, and sometimes I like, so I won't, I kind of trust my gut, but sometimes I feel like eating it. And even when I do eat it, I'm not trying, like, I feel like a thing that people tend to do is if they want to do something, they find reasons why it's okay to do that thing.
Right.
And so they feel okay doing it. So, I mean, I still do it, but, like, I'm not trying to pretend that it's not, like, it's not the best decision. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I feel like that's a fair view I want to encourage people to take. Like, even if you are going to continue eating meat till the day you die and you know it, like, there's no, I don't know, it just makes sense to be like, well, here's what we know about it, and here's some information about it, and if I choose to continue eating meat, I don't want to put, please don't take this as me putting pressure on people. I don't like to do that. But, like, if I continue eating meat, then I just, like, it doesn't make the other things not true, or I don't need to, like, find some kind of way to resolve it in myself. And I think the reason people do that is because if they don't resolve it in themselves, then they feel like they have to take action, or they won't enjoy the meat or something as much. But I also feel like that's kind of what's natural, what's supposed to, like, how humans are supposed to act, you know. That guilt will eventually, or that bother will eventually push you to a healthier, better path. Do you have any thoughts about that? Like, does that sound right to you, or do you have another way of going about it?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, a lot of people are trying not to acknowledge it, and that's the biggest problem. I have that problem where we just want a lot of people. Yeah,
you were mentioning that at the beginning of your story. You were like, well, I need meat for gains, for muscle gains. And I also kind of had that myth. I mean, yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, so then you started making this change. Did you do it primarily for spiritual reasons? It sounds like it wasn't like, oh, I found a great protein source that's vegetable that's better than meat proteins. But you were also having that physical reaction to your body, kind of almost becoming like the meat itself. Yeah. And so I guess there are multiple reasons that you started to switch to the vegetarian thing.
The main reason is definitely just being more spiritually healthy. I wanted to be I wanted to be a good person on a spiritual level. Like, I could no longer deny that I was, like, highly spiritual, but I'm doing what I was doing to my body for meat. You know what I mean? So I think one of the biggest things people can do is just acknowledge that, you know, that meat is a situation where there's a lot of murders happening. You know, just acknowledge that, you know, and don't avoid it, because once you really acknowledge it, it's like, all right, do I really want to eat this meat right now? Do I love animals, or do I not love animals? You know, you know, I love my dog right here, but not this cow. This cow on my plate has nothing to do with my dog. I mean, come on, listen.
And yo, I should point out, I was vegetarian for like 2 years, and it was the inciting incident that made that happen was that my quail died. I had a pet quail for a little while. It wasn't one of the California ones. It's a Caturnix or something. It's like a Japanese brown little quail. But anyways, he got eaten by an animal, like a cat or something. But the thing that I kind of realized was that, like, he had a personality. Like, he had likes and dislikes. And, like, yeah, you know, like, maybe it wasn't quite as sophisticated a personality as a human, but, like, I don't know, he definitely felt like, he got excited and stuff like that. And the thing that I find, like, and I also even had like a fish one time that one of the, like, a lot of the fish would just kind of acted like more or less brainless fish. Like, I don't try to I'm in my worldly, like, my journey in this world, I'm trying to figure out animals, and I'm always like torn between the side of like they're kind of like little fleshy robots, or like biological robots, because they do act like that sometimes. They'll make really poor decisions over and over, or like when they freak out, like they'll run into a wall over and over, and you're like, dude, you're not gonna get through that wall. You're clear. So that's like, okay, that's like the machine side of them. But then I've also recognized that like they enjoy things, and they have like the fish. It had a friend. It used to like to swim with this other fish. It would like, there was this long like golden dojo loach. It's like this long eel looking fish, and he would swim around with the goldfish, and like you could kind of tell they had a friendship. He didn't hang with the other fish as much and stuff like that. So, and then you see these things like Amazing Animal Friendships, if you've ever seen that show or YouTube. I don't know where it is, but it's all these weird relationships between animals of different species where they're like helping each other out and clearly have some kind of develop some kind of deep relationship for no other reason than, or maybe there's a reason, but it's like it's beyond the norm. It speaks to something more than the mechanical side of things. So anyways, after all this sidetrack, the whole point is that like when I there is something to animals that they do like have that feeling and stuff like that. And like you're saying, like you're just because it's a cows are, it's not that much different than your dog. It has a similar level of nuance. Some animals are a little smarter or whatever, but yeah. Actually, let me ask you a quick question based on that, because this is something that I'll probably forget if I don't ask now. Fish. Fish to me, I guess I just told the story of that little dojo loach, but in general, for some reason, fish to me seem like they're not as bad to eat. Like, I feel like there's a spectrum on meat. Like, red meat is the worst thing you would want to eat, and then like poultry is a little lower, and then like I feel like a lot farther lower we have fish. I don't know why. That's just my feeling. Do you have any thoughts or feelings on that?
I mean, I haven't thought about that directly, but I'll think about it now. I feel like fish are life, just like everything else, and I look at it like that. If it's like flesh and it has like eyes, a heart, and all that stuff, like it has some type of feeling. It has some type of vibration. It is alive. It's not something. They have children, they have babies, they have siblings, they have friends too. So even though they're not, I mean, they may not be as conscious as us, but they're still, they're still alive.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. What about, because you're vegetarian, not vegan specifically.
Yep.
So what about eating eggs, milk, what else is a vegetarian? Oh, cheese. Basically, dairy and eggs, I think, are the two big categories for vegetarian. That divides vegetarian and vegan. What are your feelings on that?
Yeah, so I have tried vegan before, and it was very, very difficult for a bunch of reasons. And honestly, my body didn't react too well to that. I didn't feel well energetically, and I was breaking out, and all kinds of weird stuff was happening when I went vegan for a little bit. But my thoughts on it. I mean,
did you go straight from eating meat to vegan, or did you go from vegetarian to vegan?
I went from eating meat to vegetarian, and then I went from vegetarian to vegan for a little bit.
So that's interesting, because I feel like that's different than like if your first thing was go meat to vegan, I would say, well, maybe that was just a really big jump.
Yeah.
But you were actually doing well as a vegetarian, and then you switched to vegan, and then it wasn't working for you. Okay, that's interesting.
Right. And yeah, don't get me wrong, the vegans are definitely doing more work than the vegetarians out here. That's for sure.
It's tough. Apparently, honey isn't vegan. I have a friend who's vegan, and she told me that, and I was like, oh, I guess not. Like that was a weird one for me. So yeah, a lot of things like vegan cuts out a lot of things.
Oh my God,
more than vegetarian.
Oh yeah.
And I should point out, I have been vegan for I did Orthodox Lent, which was like 40 something, a little over 40 days of being vegan. And I found that to be much more difficult than vegetarian, like by far. It was very different. And I would like to be on the vegan tip, because apparently like the dairy farms, I don't really eat that much dairy anymore. I feel like for some reason that doesn't seem energetically cheese seems better to me than milk. I don't know why, but but yeah. So what were we saying about?
Yeah, so yeah, like, and I'm not gonna lie, the chickens that are laying eggs and stuff like that, I mean, they're not getting treated well at all. They're living kind
Yeah.
of in a cage their whole life, and they just are forced to lay more eggs than they're naturally supposed to. So yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, that's not energetically good environment either. But they're not getting slaughtered like
Yeah.
cows are. So I would
Yeah.
definitely say that's a little bit more extreme. But yeah, people who are vegan, I think they're definitely doing good work, and they definitely have even better karma, or more. They might be vibrating even higher than a vegetarian would, because they're not consuming or even touching any type of products that have meat involved, or not meat, but animal involvement in it. So.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And like one of the things was still talking, or we're talking about the spiritual reasons. But I think we're going to start getting into the physical reasons. And one of the videos I watched that pretty much was like, okay, that was the end of the argument. Was there's this guy who wrote a book called How Not to Die, and it's like about eating a plant-based diet. That's what he calls it, a plant-based diet. And I think for him, it's like not as big of a deal to eat meat occasionally, maybe. But the whole point is that like, but it's probably better not to. But the whole point of the thing, and you could look up like anything on YouTube that's like how not to die, and it'll just, like a lecture or whatever. He just did all the research. He found all the scientific studies about this and that, and people who have some kind of disease or like, whatever in their body that's not good, and then they just switch to a plant-based diet, and then they're healed. That's like a really common occurrence, and there are like tons of studies that have validated that the plant-based diet is just it kicks your body into like, it just, the way I see it at least, is like puts your body into its regular mode, so it's not like dealing with stuff that it's in, like has to, like, it doesn't have bad stuff it has to deal with. And when it's in its regular mode, then it finds any bad stuff that's in there, disease, unhealth, whatever, and it works on that because it's got some surplus energy, and it's like, all right, let's get this body into optimal condition. While if you're eating a lot of junky stuff, it's constantly trying to clear out oils and fats and salt or whatever is bad, and then it's like, no, I don't have time to deal with that cancer that's growing. Like, I'm just trying to deal with this day-to-day business that you keep shoving in me. So that's kind of like my feeling about that, and that's kind of right there on the between the metaphysical and the physical side of things, I feel like, because it's kind of, it encompasses both. So yeah, what do you think is the biggest? I have right here listed a bunch of physical reasons. I'll just go through them real quick because I feel like it would be nice to get them all, just like an overview, and then you can talk about whatever you think you want to go into more detail on.
Perfect.
But you have written here increased lifespan. So these are the physical health reasons. Like if you go vegetarian, these are the benefits. Increased lifespan, reduced risk of disease, lower cholesterol levels, reduces risk of diabetes, healthy skin, a lower body weight, improves metabolism. Vegetarians tend to eat more vitamins, minerals, and fiber, lower blood sugar levels, and improved kidney function, and it can reduce pain from arthritis. So, I mean, there's lots more too. Like if you watch these videos, you're gonna find, but like that's a really powerful list. Yeah, what did you want to go into in more depth about those things?
Yeah, so I think what's obvious to me on why you shouldn't eat meat is like dead. Okay, it's like dead flesh, right? And when it's getting put in the slaughterhouse, is processed and all that stuff, they're putting all these chemicals in it to keep it preserved. And then there's already like toxins and bacteria already on the dead meat, right? So physically, people who eat meat, they're literally eating a whole bunch of toxins, a whole bunch of bacteria, literally when they're eating this meat. And when you're eating plant-based foods or regular foods that aren't meat and stuff, you're not getting filled with bacteria. So when we talk about increasing lifespan, your lifespan will more likely be longer if you're not constantly having to deal with bacteria in your body. A lot of people, when they go vegetarian, their face clears up, right? And that's because, like, you know, your body is always trying to get rid of toxins when our face is breaking out. Some people, it breaks out just because of sugar and stuff like that, but like half of the time it's because of actual meat and all the bacteria they're eating. So just for that reason, why would you eat meat when you know that it's filled with bacteria that can hurt you, and can actually lead to like cancer? Meat is actually known and proven that it can lead to cancer. High cholesterol, you know, blood sugars being all over the place. You know, our bodies aren't, you know, a lot of people are like, well, we have teeth, so we're supposed to be eating meat. No, not really. Animals that can go and kill other animals and eat it raw, they have all kinds of things happening in their gut, like more acid and stuff that can actually handle that stuff. Us humans, we can't do that. We have to cook it, right? Because we can't handle our bodies can't handle that stuff. And that tells a big story right there. And another thing about meat is it takes a very long time to digest that. We're supposed to, you know, go to the bathroom every day. Right after, you know, whatever you eat, you're supposed to, you know, basically have a bowel movement for that day. Meat eaters can't, because it takes so long to process the meat in your body. It takes so long to get rid of those toxins. And like you said, your body's so busy getting rid of that stuff, it can't focus on the other stuff. So yeah,
I feel like meat is energetically heavy, and then as things go, when something's metaphysically something, it's usually physically also like the same, and it's like heavy in your system. Like you're saying, it goes through slowly, lethargically through the intestines, like grinding, you know, like it just doesn't feel like a fast engine that's like firing, you know, clean and everything. It's like some grimy kind of bad gasoline that's sticking on everything.
Right. And that's a you know, a lot of people want to blame sugar and just carbs for the reason why they can't lose weight. But hey, guess what, guys? It has a lot to do with the meat. Your body takes so long to digest that meat. It takes so long. So a lot of people who do become vegetarian, they end up eating actually more food, right? And they actually lose weight because your body doesn't have to spend so much time processing all that meat.
Oh, interesting. Okay, wait. So here's another idea that I've heard that might also be related to this, is that so all the energy we have on Earth came from the sun. You know, it came from stars if you go further enough back, but most of it comes from the sun. And aside from, because that's all of the light coming from the sun, hits those little photons, and the little light waves hit the plants. The plants turn that into little cells, and they're storing that little light energy, literally making that into new matter, turning it from energy to matter. And then you could eat that straight up, and it's almost like you just ate some energy from the sun. It's just one step removed. But then maybe another animal eats it, all right? And then you eat that animal, now you're 2 steps removed, because it had to take the energy from the plant that the plant got from the sun, and it took that and it kind of put it into. So I feel like it's almost like every time you do it, there's like another layer that you have to get through to get to that pure sun energy. That's what you really want to power your body.
I love
Does that sound like a right? That's kind of a simple way of thinking about it. Because like literally, aside from the sun, the only other place that energy comes from is the inside of the earth. It's hot. There's similar reactions that are happening in the sun happening inside the earth. And one of the places that you find unexpected, like, diversity of life and all sorts of interesting creatures and things happening is really super deep in the sea, where there's no light at all. It's like pitch black. The pressure is just crushing. Like, you can't send humans down there. You have to send these machines because there's so much water above it. And there are all these creatures flourishing, like a whole nother ecosystem that's completely separate from the one on the surface of the earth, because they've got the heat from it's so low down to the ground that it's close to the earth's mantle where all the lava is, and like where their like heat will spout through, and then that's pure energy basically, because heat is energy just like light. It's the same like vibration. And then there are creatures that can take that energy, convert it to matter, boom, you've got a whole ecosystem there that's not but the point is we don't get our energy and then the idea is that like you got to think about where the energy is coming from initially and how you can capture it in its purest form. And like in India and stuff, there are gurus who claim that they can just live off the sun's energy. Like kind of they've taken it one step past. They're like, all right, we'll just take it straight from the source. You know, I don't know. I still have to do some research, figure out more like the details or whatever. That it sounds too good to be true. But yeah. So my point is that like yeah, that's the purest energy source. So you want to get closer to it, I would think.
Yeah, and to elaborate on that, just think of it like this. Like, here's a test, okay? I want someone to get a bowl, right? And fill up your bowl on just like, you know, nonsense, like whatever you might like cereal, chips.
Okay.
Processed foods.
A bunch of junky food.
Yeah, meat and stuff, right? And fill it all up, right? And then eat it, right? And see how you feel afterwards, okay? Ooh. Now, I bet you're going to feel not too good about yourself. You're going to feel a little tired, and guess what? You're still going to feel a little hungry, okay? Now, go take that same bowl and fill the entire thing up with vegetables. Fill the entire thing up with plant-based stuff, things from the ground. Eat that. Tell me how much lighter you feel, and tell me how much more fulfilled you feel. Because guess what? Your body doesn't want these junk foods, okay? You want it. You've been programmed to want it. You've been conditioned to want these sweets, right? And not to mention, we don't need to get into the scientists and all this stuff, but companies are literally paying scientists to put things in the food to give us highs, like drug effects. So people get addicted to the stuff, right? But is that
what MSG is? That the only thing I think of, like MSG comes to mind when you said that. I don't know what it is, the monosodium glutamate, but it's like apparently added to foods, and it's supposed to be addictive and
yeah, they're definitely
good for you.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff they're doing to the foods to make them more addicting and to release chemicals of highness, serotonin and whatever, all that stuff, endorphins. And so when people are eating food, it's like they are getting these endorphins released, so they do feel better in that moment, right? And then when they're hungry, it's because they want to get their fix, right? But like but that's not what your actual body wants, not your spiritual self and not your physical self. When you eat a whole bunch of plants in a meal and things from the actual earth, you're gonna feel so much energetically better. You're not gonna feel tired. You're gonna feel lighter, and your body is actually gonna feel fuller because your body just wants nutrition, okay? And it gets it from the plants, not the meat. Right? So once you give your body more nutrition, you're not going to even want the other foods as much. Once you get rid of your sweet tooth, you're not going to want the processed food as much. You're going to be pretty much looking forward to your sweet potatoes and your plants and your beans and things of the earth.
Yo, so that's actually been exactly my experience. I don't know what happened a while ago, but sugar stopped being something that I could eat, like refined sugar. It just, my body was like, nah, that's not doing anything for us. And sometimes I would like want to get a slice, like I really like cheesecake. It's like my favorite. And I want to get a nice big slice of cheesecake, and I'm 2 or 3 bites in, and I'm just like, if I take another bite of this, like, I'm really not going to be happy. I just know. And it's just like, and it's almost annoying. Like, I want to eat the cheesecake and get that instant gratification kind of thing. But like, my body is just completely aware that like, this is not doing anything for you. And that's what's slowly been starting happening to me with like meat and what's it called? Dairy, especially milk. But I really want to get back. We got to do something about like that eating a bowl of junk food and eating a bowl of veggies. Like, it's a great, like, I don't even think you have to do it to like, oh, you already know what the answer is going to be. It's one of those experiments that just hearing about it, you're like, oh, okay. I really think we need to make something where like 5, you know, like one of these listings, like 5 things to do or try to see, like, to get more awakened about, like, what the vegetarian, like, good, healthy food from the earth is doing and what junkier food is doing. So we don't have that right now, but if you're listening to this later, like in a month or two, go to thirdeyesamurai.com, because I really think it's just probably going to be an article, PDF, or something like that, simple. But that's really powerful, because that one little thing you just said right there about the bowls, that, like, is going to stick with me. and it's always going to make things very simple. You know what I mean? Like when I see a food, I already kind of have that sense, but I like it. This is like more clarified. And I feel like even if I didn't have that kind of natural sense to things, intuitive feel for it, this would make it super easy. You know, you see a food and you say, which bowl does it go in? And I think you're going to know instantly without like, you know, you're going to be like, that's that bowl, that's that bowl. Like, and then you'll know like where you're standing, what choices you're making. One of the things that I've started eating more of that, because the tough thing for me was like feeling as full and stuff when I'm eating vegetarian things. The biggest thing for me, game changer, beans and rice. Yeah, that's it. With some veggies on the side, some kind of, I like kale or broccoli or spinach or whatever. I tend to like the green ones for some reason, but this the beans and rice. That's like, if it's nice. It feels beans and rice, very nice. That's how you can remember that, because I know it's gonna be tough to remember, viewers, listeners. No, but like really, it feels like full and stuff, and it has a similar feeling of like I feel full and like, you know, like filled up with energy that like you kind of get from eating meat, but without the bogged down, like, oh, but I'm going to need about an hour or two to metabolize that energy. And then I'll be feeling like a strong, you know, like my posture, I'm ready to stand tall and stuff like that. You know what I mean? That kind of feeling where you've got like that extra energy. It's not troubling to stand up tall and have good posture because, you know, you're just like feeling that energy through you. So that's like beans and rice was a big game changer for me. So I wanted to mention that. One of the things we're also going to talk about, not only our physical health, but you're also going to talk about the Earth's health. And I know you have already, but can you riff on that for a little bit? Like,
yeah. So basically, like, I'm a big energy guy, and you know, if anyone listening hasn't YouTube a slaughterhouse, go ahead and YouTube a slaughterhouse and watch like 10 seconds of it, and you're gonna understand.
Let me interject something. It's you're gonna be. So hold on, I want to interject something because those videos are very disturbing and very sad, and I feel like almost like a knee-jerk reaction if you're not gonna become vegetarian or if you're not already, is to be like, I don't know, like to not believe it, to create like a kind of separation. Like, okay, that's happening, but I don't believe it on a deeper level. Because if I let that into my heart, it's a little too intense. Like, you know, like then I have to think about, like when you were saying, we were talking about in the last 2 episodes, the third eye. It's like an opening of the third eye. And then all of a sudden you regret, like, oh my goodness, how many innocent creatures have I killed, you know? And like, what's wrong with like humanity is a horrible thing. And like, who are these people who are treating animals like that? Because it's not just the conditions. Like, you'll see people like throwing chickens, treating them like they're inanimate objects, like literally just throwing them into barrels on top of each other and stuff, and like having no regard or if they get hurt or whatever, like anything like that. But I wanted to point out that actually I saw something recently. It was in the movie. There's these 2 movies called Baccarat and Samsara, and they're completely, there's no narration, there's no talking, it's all visual imagery with sound. And it's kind of like a tone poem or something. I don't know, some people think it's like visual poetry, but I looked up, I think this one was in Samsara. There's a scene about the slaughterhouse, and it's very like, I feel like it's authentic in that it's not biased, trying to show how cruel it is, specifically finding the cruelest ones out there. And I think it is good to look at 10 or 15 seconds of that, maybe just to know what's out there. But like, you see that like even in the ones that are normal, you have these cows on conveyor belts in this dark room, and it's just like, you know what I mean? Or like the chickens are put in boxes and shoved into the thing, and they're like in a filing cabinets full of chickens where there's like no light and stuff like that. And it's still like you know, like that might be easier to watch for some people who are just, you know, that horrible like PETA animal cruelty image is just a little too much for them to take in. So I wanted to mention that. You can find that on YouTube. I'll probably put some clips on while I was talking about it, actually, for the video version, and have the name of the video clip or whatever, so you guys can look it up. But yeah, so go on, man. But I just wanted to mention that because it's true. Like, those are really, you can just look at that and you'll know, like, that something's not right.
There's not a worse horror movie out there than these things on these slaughterhouses. Trust me. I mean, I get the chills thinking about it, because it's like literally like I think it's the worst thing I've ever seen physically with my eyes. You know what I'm saying? because it's real. Like it's like crazier than any horror movie. Like so basically,
and it's happening like everywhere, all over the world. Because like I'm thinking like war stuff. War stuff's pretty dark. You can see some dark stuff from World War II and everything like that. But I mean, I guess
at least people are fighting. They had some type of like chance, but the slaughterhouses is straight.
That's a good point. No one. Well, okay, like there was people not actually. Anyways, let's not get into World War II. But like, it wasn't accepted, and then we made the change, and it was a one-off incident that is a dark point in history. But the animal slaughterhouse cruelty thing, like, that's global and it's ongoing, and and there's not really. There are people speaking out against it, but. I mean, to be perfectly honest, unless people stop eating meat and stop demanding to eat meat, at least in the quantities that we're doing now, it's just going to keep going. Because, right? Like, that's just the way the world works. There's a supply and demand. Economy is more powerful than culture, it seems, at least for now.
I mean, money rules the world, and the food industry is the biggest money industry on our planet. So the government, the world doesn't want us to be educated on this stuff because they would lose money.
There's an interesting book called Ishi. I forgot.
Edited in post. Actually, it was called Ishmael.
About a talking gorilla who explains to a man the reason why humans have kind of like messed up. And the main point, he makes it very simple. So I really recommend this book. It's basically talking about what you're talking about. He was saying when man put food into like a storehouse and locked it, that was the beginning of the end of that was like the beginning of the long-term corruption. When someone can tell you like you got to give me money for food, and then it's just that's the industry that's like the most powerful, because you could cut out everything else. You could even live out in the open. Like shelter is pretty important, but it's not nearly at the same level as food. So it's up to us to change our taste in foods as a collective body to make this change happen. And I kind of see it happening, because I mean, you think about it, like 50 years ago, 100 years ago, were vegetarians a thing? Like more vegans? Like it probably was very rare, if at all. Maybe people didn't eat meat, but it would be because like, whatever reasons they had were probably not related to like the spiritual vibration of the earth as a whole.
Right, and back then it was okay to do it because you hunted your own food, but we'll get into that in a second. Let me get back to what we're saying about Earth. Like basically, I was saying all the murders that are happening, so let's give you guys some perspective. There are over 150 million killed animals per day, and if you include farm fishes and wild-caught fishes, we're looking at more to 3 billion a day. Getting killed.
Wow.
So that is like, could you imagine like 150
First off, that's
million?
really dark.
Yeah.
But also that's kind of amazing that like this world we live in that has such bountiful, resources that you can kill 3 billion people a day, every day for years, not people, but animals, creatures.
Beings. Right.
And I know we're definitely hurting the world, but like, that's pretty incredible. But I feel like that's kind of speaking to that, like, this world wants to be bountiful and stuff. And it's like, if someone's like a nice person and like offers to give you a ride places or like help you with your project, like you don't just go and be like, all right, person, let me get every moment of your life, like I'm just going to steal like since you have such, you're being generous. Let me just take everything you have. Like, I feel like that's kind of the attitude humans have towards the earth. We're like, oh, look, there's lots of fish in the sea. Let's just get them all. Like, that's like, you wouldn't do that to another human being. But we don't seem to treat the earth with as much respect as another person or animals that. Right. Or even lots of people don't treat people with very much respect. Maybe that's the underlying issue.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty wild. Yeah.
So like all over so all these, do you have some more statistics? I mean, that's crazy, man.
Well, I mean, it does go on to say 56 billion land animals are killed per year, which is like crazy too.
But think billion. A billion is crazy. A million 1,000 times of a million is a billion, but like I don't think people understand. Like a million's already huge. Like 2 million is twice as much as a huge number. 3 million is 3 times as much as an already gigantic number. Multiply that by 1,000. You can't really imagine it. It's
56 billion
insane.
murders. Like, this is crazy. So think about, like, on a spiritual level, you know, what that's doing to our earth as a whole. Because we all are from the same planet. We all live here. We all breathe the same air. We're all connected through the air. You see what I'm saying? So all these murders happening every single day is only putting bad energy back to our earth, bad energy back to us. It's keeping us from collectively rising higher. You mentioned that plants have energy directly from the sun, right? Could you imagine if we're all just eating plants and things of the earth and all the animals were alive, how much less energy, bad energy that will be here with us? We all would feel better. Not just the animals, all of us. We all would be in a higher vibration. The whole earth would be at a higher vibration. Everyone would be in a better state.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, if you have, like, we were talking about, like, things vibrate, they match the vibrations in time. The biggest vibrations are going to be the ones matched. The earth is, like, the biggest vibration that, like, that's huge. That's going to affect every single person on the earth. And it's probably whatever it's resonating at is going to be stronger than what you're resonating at. I don't know if that's 100% true, though, because you were talking about things like energy shielding. So there might be, like, an internal vibration that, I mean, I'm guessing there's a little bit of a war where there's, like, the external vibrations are affecting you, but you've also got the internal ones kind of holding them off. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, definitely. Like, you could have your own filter system and kind of shield yourself from some of these negative energies. But, like, let's just talk about Earth. You know, Earth is life, right? We're just talking about the health of the Earth. Like, the Earth has to deal with all these bad energies, right? Think about how much more healthier the Earth would be if there wasn't so many murders going on every single day. And that would help us all vibrate higher, regardless of if we're shielding from the bad energy or not, because Earth will be vibrating higher. So yeah, like obviously eating or less murders here is beneficial for everybody. And man, we did it again. We're almost out of time. So there's one last point I do want to bring up to give people perspective. There is a okay time to eat meat, and that's when it's within the circle of life. What do I mean by that? If you go out here and you go and actually hunt your own meat, and then you cook it and then eat it, that's okay, because you did the hunting. You weren't you didn't just hunt for fun. You hunted for survival. You did it yourself, so you weren't just being a coward and going to the store and buying your own meat. And C, when the animal was killed, which is the most important part, the animal is still feeling like it could be alive, right? So think about it. When an animal lives in a slaughterhouse and it gets killed, it always knew it was going to get killed. It was never looking for anything. It was death, right? But when an animal's outside in the world and it's free, and it sees you trying to hunt it, you're then in the circle of life, because the animal's running for its life with the idea that, hey, it has this chance of survival. It's still alive, right? Now, here's the thing to think about. When animals are in the slaughterhouses and they put the cows up in the little harness and they chop the head off, there's not any blood that comes out of the thing. The blood freezes. It doesn't ooze blood out of it, right? It's because they're so tense and they're so afraid that their cells literally freeze up and they don't like drip blood, and that says a lot.
That's crazy,
right? So the cells aren't even. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm Muslim, and one of the things we're supposed to eat only halal meats, which is kind of like kosher. Yeah, so I was gonna mention about in Islam, with the halal meat, you're not supposed two of the things that you're not allowed to do is eat an animal that died afraid. So if the animal died in fear, then you're not supposed to eat it, and that's just kind of like open-ended of how it could. And then the other thing is you're supposed to drain it of all its blood. Now, I never thought that the blood draining thing had anything to do with what's it called? With the fear thing, but it might. I mean, I didn't know that about the body tensing up so much that it's super strong. I don't know why this thing keeps making noises. Oh, I think it's my computer. Yeah. But sorry about that. I think I just fixed it. But yeah, so that's really anyways, that's really interesting just from my own background. I found that interesting.
Basically, when you're hunting an animal and it's alive and it's free, it's running from you, feeling like it's going to survive still, like it still thinks it has a chance of life. So when you kill that animal, it bleeds normally. It has blood flow normally, right? But when you kill the animal in a slaughterhouse, it doesn't have normal blood flow. It's totally frozen. And then we go and we eat those cells, and then we wonder why everyone's all at a standstill, all angry, all sad, all depressed, anxiety-based, fear-based, all that stuff. So yeah, that's food for thought for you guys, you know, when it comes to your food choices.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. And there's a lot of interesting points, but one of the ones that you just kind of mentioned that was at the beginning of this podcast, and I think it bears reiterating, is that like the vibration of the thing that you eat is going to affect your vibration. So like you're saying, if the creature was scared, you know, anxiety, depressed, that stuff is going to get into your system and affect you in a similar way, right? That's kind of what you've been saying.
Right, exactly.
And it's just like, so there are so many different reasons. We were talking like the health reasons, the spiritual reasons. It's like not really a selfless choice, I think, to become vegetarian. It can be, but it can also be a very selfish choice if you just want to, you know, be more like at your optimal level of health, like in all aspects of your life. That's going to be one of the like biggest things you can do, I think, I would imagine, to you know, to be at your optimal form. Right. Do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah, guys. So just my closing thought is just, give all that stuff some thought, and you know, just acknowledge what's happening in the world, and think about what you want for your own vibration, and make a decision maybe to go vegetarian. Just give it a try, see how it goes.
Yeah, and if you do, let us know in the comments and stuff. Like, it would be is one of the most powerful things about putting this kind of content out there, like a podcast, is connecting with other people and kind of really vibing off each other and being there for each other. So I'm hoping that this is going to evolve into a community of like-minded people and having that support. Like yesterday, I just went out and shopping, and you gave me a nice list of all the good stuff to eat. So I got all that good stuff, and without you, I probably would have gotten, the regular stuff that I usually get. So I feel like that support and having homies in the same vibrations as you is huge.
Oh yeah, I love it.
All right, cool. We'll see you guys all next week then, I guess.
All right, guys, till next time.
Everything in existence appears to have an opposite.
It seems to be the fundamental property of the universe that we live in.
But what then is the opposite of reality itself, of existence,
of the universe,
and of everything that our physical senses can discern?
That 50% of what is
just what we're trying to learn more about.
The Metaphysical Podcast Network is your spot to start pioneering the kind of stuff that mystics have been talking about for ages,
and quantum physicists are just starting to discuss. You can learn more and listen in at
Metaphysics Podcast Network. New videos up weekly. Subscribe now.